Welcome, everyone. It's my great pleasure to welcome Swami Mahayogananda, who we all know from his years of being posted here, and we're always happy when he comes back to visit. I don't know if he's thought about it, but if my calculation is correct, that you've just completed 25 years of monastic life.
97 I joined.
Huh?
So,
Almost. Yeah. It's 25 years. So now becoming one of our senior monks, we can say. I remember when I spoke some years ago in Florida and I was introduced as one of the senior monks of our order, I was just shocked. And it happens that way. Yeah. So of course, some of us know him. Uh, he actually came to Trabuco, I think, just a few days before I left Trabuco. So we didn't overlap, but of course I know him from before. Anyhow, I won't take up too much time. We invite Swamiji to speak on the topic making friends with death.
thank you, Maharaj, for that warm introduction, and it's wonderful to be here. And I'll start with a chant. Om tadekam smaramasthadekam hajamaha tadekam jagat sakshirupam namamaha sadekam nidhanam niralambamisham bhavam bodhipotam Sharanyam Rajamaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. On that alone do we meditate. That alone do we worship. To that alone, the witness of the universe, do we bow. To that one who is our sole eternal support, the self-existent Lord, the raft to safety across the ocean of this world, do we come for refuge. Om, peace, peace, peace. So today's topic is making friends with death. And some people may feel, what is this? Making friends with death? Death is our enemy. Death, we want to forget death. Make friends with death. But I think you'll agree at least when we get into it, that it's a very appropriate topic, because death is very much in the news. It's very much on our minds right now. We're in the middle of a big pandemic, and people are dying. Of course, people are always dying, but now it feels like death is lurking behind every pillar, as it were. Nearly 5.5 million people have died of COVID-19 worldwide. In this country, 833,000 as of a few days ago. I remember when we first crossed 100,000 and it was big news. And then 200,000 was sort of news, and then no more news about anything. So maybe when we cross 1 million, we'll get more news. In 2020, it was the third leading cause of death behind heart disease and cancer. Third leading cause of death in 2020. And that doesn't include deaths from other unaddressed causes, people who don't go to the doctor because you can't get a doctor's appointment and that kind of thing. So, and now Omicron is surging. We're back to wearing masks. We're back to being very cautious. It seems like there's a lot of fear. And yes, we are afraid to die. Most of us, we are afraid to die. And yet, we will die. Without a doubt, we will die. Most people try to forget it, to deny it. I think this, the COVID deniers, those who refuse to wear masks and all that, that's also a kind of denial. A denial that we are mortal beings. And this, of course, is an observation that the great Pandava king Yudhishthira made thousands of years ago, when the Yaksha asked him, what's the most amazing, what's the most strange and amazing and wonderful thing in this world that you see? And he says, Ahanyahani bhutani gachanti hayamalayam sheshastarvamichanti kimascharyamatah param. What could be more unusual, most strange, and what could be more than this, that all around us we see every day people dying. We see people dying all around us. We all know people who have died. And yet, we want to live forever. And yet, we think it won't happen to us. That's the most wonderful thing, the most ascharya, the most strange thing. So it's a kind of a paradox. Death is certain, yet we deny it. There's an interesting book written by one Ernest Becker in 1973. Let me read this quote. He asks, what does it mean to be a self-conscious animal? We're animals, self-conscious animals. It means to know that one is food for worms. This is the terror. He describes it. This is the terror. To have emerged from nothing. Of course, he's coming clearly from a materialist standpoint. To have emerged from nothing. To have a name. Consciousness of self. Deep inner feelings. An excruciating inner yearning for life and self-expression. And with all this, yet to die. And then he asks, what kind of deity, what kind of God would create such a complex and fancy worm food? I think he really touches on something here, that we have such a rich inner life, and what a complex machine this is, and yet when we die, it becomes food for the worms. Yes. He goes on to theorize that because of this fear, we strive to make ourselves immortal through our civilization, through art, through music, through religion, through politics, and the cruelty that we human beings inflict upon each other also has its roots in this immortality project. My religion is true, yours is false, and then we get this kind of... So he feels that the denial of death has these far-reaching repercussions in society. Be that as it may, his observation is certainly correct that life is fragile. We think of life as pretty sturdy, but if the tree falls in the right place, and a life is snuffed out. The right bacteria gets in, and a life is snuffed out. It really goes back. If we look at the animal world, most animals are potential meals for other animals. Even nowadays, not too much, but in the early days of our coming to this world, yes, tigers, saber-toothed tigers. We still have tigers. We have lions. We have crocodiles. We are somebody's potential dinner. So it's natural to fear death. It's hardwired in us through our evolution, because we are also a potential meal. Strikes me that there are a kind of strange complex of attitudes we have towards death in general. Yes, we've discussed this fear and denial, but also a fascination for death, and the feeling of battle, going to battle death, especially the doctors. And of course, what comes, we hope, is acceptance. And that's what we're talking about today. It's amazing that until the 1960s, if physicians found that a patient has a terminal illness, maybe it looks like you're not going to live more than a few months, they wouldn't tell the patient. They would not tell the patient. This is real denial. Oh, you'll get better. And the tragedy is people would die, perhaps thinking that they're going to get better, or very often probably knowing that they're not going to get better, but being unable to take leave of their loved ones because supposedly they're not getting. Supposedly they are getting better. So then the battle of medicine, medical interventions at all costs to extend life, even for a few days. And yet, I think the medical advances have actually made death less real to us, because death so often happens in hospitals and institutions. It doesn't happen with us by the side of the dying person. And then a mortuary takes care of the body. So it's not real to us. In India, at least, still today, I believe, when somebody dies, the family gathers around, bathes the body, wraps the body in a shroud, carries it to the cremation ground. Ram Nam Satya Hai Ram. The name of Rama is the only reality. So it has a certain reality that we begin to lose when we don't see a dead body, except when it's made up with lots of makeup in the funeral parlor, made to look like it's still alive. So death becomes a little less real to us. And then this fascination with death in, say, video games. How many, I'm just gather that many, many video games involve shooting and killing and then getting killed eventually. Or horror movies. People are fascinated by horror movies. Halloween. Walk around in our neighborhood in Hollywood and you'll see all kinds of corpses and skeletons hanging out in the front lawns of our neighbors. And what's that fascination? It's like poking fun at death, trying to laugh at death, because we're so uncomfortable with it. So rather, it's better to laugh at it. But death always has the last laugh. Once upon a time, long, long ago, in Baghdad, there was a merchant, a wealthy merchant, and he had a faithful servant. Every day the servant would go to the market to purchase groceries for the household. And one morning, as usual, the servant took the funds for the grocery shopping and he went to the market, but he came running back very soon, white as a sheet and trembling. And the merchant asked him, "My good man, what could possibly be the matter?" "Oh, sir, I was in the market and somebody jostled me, and I turned to look to see who it was, and it was Death, and he threatened me. Sir, I'm not ready to die. Please, lend me your horse. I'll ride away. I have a friend in Samara. I'll ride to Samara and hide there." The merchant was a compassionate man, so he agreed. He gave he had his fastest horse saddled up, and he said, "Yes, my dear friend, go to Samara. Be safe." So the servant galloped off to Samara, 80 miles to the north. In the meantime, the merchant thought he'd go to the market and see what happened, and looked around, and sure enough, there he saw Death prowling around in the market. And he approached him and he said, "Hey, Death, why did you threaten my servant? He's a good man. You scared him so much." And Death said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to scare him. I didn't mean to. I wasn't threatening him. I was just so surprised. It was just a gesture of surprise. I was astonished to see him here in Baghdad. You see, I have an appointment with him tonight in Samara." So we think we can escape death. It cannot happen. All right, one more reading from Swami Vivekananda. "Then there is the tremendous fact of death. The whole world is going towards death. Everything dies. All our progress, our vanities, our reforms, our luxuries, our wealth, our knowledge have that one end, death. That is all that is certain. Cities come and go, empires rise and fall. Planets break into pieces and crumble into the dust to be blown about by the atmospheres of other planets. Thus it has been going on from time without beginning. Death is the end of everything. Death is the end of life, of beauty, of wealth, of power, of virtue too. Saints die and sinners die, kings die and beggars die. They are all going to death." So this is the news. We're all going to die. And we can take nothing with us except our state of mind. Our state of mind, and we take our karma with us. So Sri Ramakrishna says, be ready for death. Be ready for death. And death has entered your house. Be ready. Fight death with what weapon? The weapon of the holy name of God. Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda suggest that we should constantly remember death. An interesting conversation took place at Belur Math. Swami Vivekananda had returned from the West. It must have been in the 1898 or so, when Surendranath Das Gupta, one young college student, went to Belur Math with his friends and went to see Swami Vivekananda. How fortunate they were. And they sat around him asking questions and basking in his presence. And suddenly he asked them, can you tell me what is the grandest of all the truths in life? They could not come up with a reply. So Swamiji answered the question himself. He said, look here, we shall all die. Bear this in mind always, and then the spirit within will wake up. Then only meanness will vanish from you. Practicality in work will come. You will get new vigor in mind and body. And those who come in contact with you will also feel that they have really got something uplifting from you. So it's amazing. By constantly remembering death, we get all these wonderful results. How can it be? And the Surendra himself was doubting it. He said, but Swamiji, will not the spirit break down at the thought of death, and the heart be overpowered by despondency? Swamiji replied, quite so. At first, the heart will break down. Despondency and gloomy thoughts will occupy your mind. But persist. Let days pass like that. And then you will see that new strength has come into the heart, that the constant thought of death is giving you a new life and is making you more and more thoughtful by bringing every moment before your mind's eye the truth of the saying, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Wait, let days, months, and years pass, and you will feel that the spirit within is waking up with the strength of a lion, that the little power within has transformed itself into a mighty power. Think of death always, and you will realize the truth of every word I say. So it's a fascinating passage, one worth studying. Swami Vivekananda suggests that if we remember death constantly, if we come to terms with our own mortality, a remarkable change will come over us. What is that? The spirit within will awaken. Meanness will vanish from us. We will attain practicality in work. We'll have a new vigor in body and mind. And we will uplift others who come in contact with us. New strength will come in the heart. So I think this constant thought of death makes us very thoughtful. It brings home to our hearts the ephemeral nature of this world, the inevitability of death. And consequently, several things happen. We get detachment, and we start thinking more and more of the divine. We start thinking more and more of that which does not die, that one refuge which we have, that one place of safety in the ocean of death, that is our beloved God. So as we begin to think more of the divine, we actually do gain the power to uplift others. One of Surendranath's friends praised Swamiji in a low voice. Swamiji immediately shot back, do not praise me. Praise and censure have no value in this world of ours. They only rock a person as if in a swing. Praise I have had enough of. Showers of censure also I have had to bear. But what avails thinking of them? Let everyone go on doing his or her own duty unconcerned. When the last moment arrives, praise and blame will be the same to you, to me, and to others. We are here to work, and we'll have to leave all when the call comes. Wonderful. We are so worried about what other people think of us. Praise, we seek praise and we try to avoid blame. We would love to pass the blame off onto somebody else. Swamiji points out, when the last moment comes, praise and blame, meaningless. Meaningless. The more we can keep the fact of our own death in our mind's eye, the more we can rise above praise and blame. We give up this meanness, as he was talking about. Because the call will come, only we don't know when. And because we know the call will come, and we can't take, and we have to leave it all, well, a wonderful detachment comes over us. We're going to have to let it go. So why be attached to it? We can't take it with us. There was a man in Virginia who was on his deathbed, a miser. He was a very miserly man. And he asked his son and wife to put his pot of gold in the attic. He said, I'm going to take it with me as I go. And his family said, Dad, you can't take it with you. Don't you know that? You can't. No, put it there. I'm going to take it with me. I have a deal with God. I'm going to take it with me. So he's collected gold coins. They put it up in the attic. And within the day, he had gone. He had died. So the son says to Mom, let's go see. So they go up to the attic and they find gold is still there. Then the son says to the mom, I knew it. We should have put it in the basement. So making friends with death. We can't take it with us. We only take our minds with us. But when we can make friends with death, as Swamiji suggests here, once we can do that, we can paradoxically really begin to live. And I think there are four things which are happening. First, when we really embrace death and become comfortable with it, what else is there to fear? If we're not afraid of death, what else is there to fear? Nothing. Why should we fear anything? The coward dies 1,000 deaths, but the hero dies once. Yes, we're going to die once. What else is there to be afraid of? So a wonderful courage comes to us. Why be afraid of all the things that we are afraid of? We're not afraid to die. So what else can we be afraid of? Secondly, the momentary nature of life makes every moment precious, makes this moment precious. I think most of us are aware, in principle at least, that most of us spend most of our time either in the future or in the past, though we're always here now. But most of the time we're either planning for the future or worrying about the future or afraid about what might happen tomorrow or next week or next month, or else thinking about what we did and usually regretting what we did or wishing that what we did might have been better. Sometimes maybe remembering also some nice things that happened before. We're not living. We're caught between regrets of the past and dreams for the future. If we can come to terms with death, then this moment becomes so important. Why? Because the next moment is not guaranteed. We don't know when death will come. We don't know when the call will come. So the freedom of this moment begins to arise. I think Swamiji is talking about this. When we are freed from anxiety over the future and regrets over the past, a wonderful new vigor comes to us. Now, detachment. If we have to give everything up, why be attached to it now? So I really admired Swami Swahananda ji for his detachment. And in the Hollywood center especially, things can get a little crazy. There's a lot of different people and different natures and living together, and then devotees, and there's actors and actresses, and they can be quite dramatic. And so there's always some drama going on in the Hollywood Center, and there always was. And Swami Swahananda was always above it. Somehow he just sailed through it. He was not affected. And so one day I asked him, I said, Maharaj, how do you stay so detached? And he said, you see, we have one foot in the grave. We can't get so wrapped up in all these things. So it was a clear answer. We have one foot in the grave. He had the clear understanding that death is coming. So why get wrapped up in all the drama? And this is where practicality comes in work, how we can really work effectively when we're not attached to the results. This detachment comes. And of course, finally, remembering death really impels us to think of that which does not die. It really impels us to think of God. It really forces us to think, well, if this body is going to die, then where will I go? And then we call on God. We take the name of God. We remember that we are immortal beings, that it is just the bodies which die. So these are 4 of the wonderful results we get from making friends with death. This fearlessness, living in the present moment, a detachment, and remembering the divine, deepening our spiritual life. Now, I've talked about this with some people, and they say, I'm not afraid to die, but I'm afraid of the pain and suffering that come before death. And probably many of us here, that would resonate with many of us here. I think it all comes as a package. Death, illness is part of death. And the whole complex of fears around death, there are several fears wrapped up into one. There is the fear of the unknown. What happens? Now, for us Vedanta students, that may be somewhat allayed because of our scriptural teachings and the assurances of the saints and sages. But still, we haven't done it. We don't remember doing it. So there is some uncertainty. Then there's the fear of annihilation. The materialists have this fear. And all of us, to a certain extent, yes, the books say so, but is it really true? Annihilation. Fear of losing what we have. Fear of the pain and suffering, of the hardships of old age and illness. Fear that we won't get to fulfill our desires. There's some strong desires that won't get fulfilled. Fear of leaving loved ones. Fear of maybe leaving children uncared for. The Yoga Sutra suggests that the fear of death is actually remembered from previous deaths, from our previous incarnations. That the pain of death, we remember it unconsciously, and that brings about the fear of death. Well, what would happen if we were told, you have 7 days to live? What would we do? If you got the news, in 7 days you will die, what will you do? This actually happened to a great king, an ancient king, King Parikshita. He was the grandson of Arjuna. And the king of Hastinapura, he went on a hunting expedition, and he was happily hunting in the forest, and he got tired and thirsty towards the end of the day, and he came upon a hermitage of a sage, the sage Shamika. And he naturally expected some nourishment, some water and food, and the sage was meditating. And he was in deep meditation, he was in samadhi. So he didn't see the king, he didn't hear the king, and the king addressed him a number of times, asking for some he's a king after all. He expects to be received royally, and he got no response at all from the sage. And he decided this guy is faking it. He's a jerk, and he was overcome with anger. What did he do? He found a dead snake, and with a couple of sticks, he draped that snake over the neck of the sage and left in a huff. Now the sage's son Shringi turns up and finds his dad seated in meditation with a dead snake around his neck, and he's furious, he's livid, and he curses, whoever did this will die in 7 days from a snake bite. Now these sages, they are not to be trifled with, though they may have some anger, but they're so dedicated to truth, they're so established in truth that whatever they say will come to pass. And so this curse was destined to be fulfilled. Now the Shamika, when he came down out of his samadhi and found out what had happened, he was also mortified that his son should utter such a curse. But it had been uttered. So word was sent to the king that he had received this curse and would die in 7 days. What did he do? He put his son on the throne. He gave up his kingdom. He gave up everything. He had this amazing detachment. He let go of all attachment to his status, his power, any unfinished business he had, any unfulfilled dreams, even unresolved relationships. He dropped it all. And what did he do? Went to the bank of the Ganges and started practicing spiritual disciplines. He created a suitable environment for leaving his body. And he was fasting. Sages gathered, other sages hearing about the king's resolve. They came to support him. And one young sage, blazing with the purity of the divine, showed up. And his name, Shukadeva. And of course, we know this is where the teachings of the Bhagavata come. The king asked him, how should one prepare for death? And Shukadeva recited the Bhagavata and the stories of Sri Krishna and how to prepare for death. Well, think about these wonderful divine incidents of Sri Krishna. So yes, after 7 days, the snake came and bit the king, and he left his body in full consciousness and attained the divine. So how fortunate he was to know the time of his death and to have the time to prepare and to use that time most effectively to prepare for his departure. It's a wonderful lesson for us. Some of us, about 10% of us, according to statistics, will die suddenly. Heart attack, stroke, accident, this kind of deaths. Not the rest, the 90% of us, we have a slow death. Generally, we'll probably see it coming. But if we wait until we're knocked down by illness, it'll be very difficult to overcome a lifetime of habits of attachment and regret and all of that. So it will be really good for us if we can start preparing now. Start preparing now. In fact, the whole of spiritual life can be, in one way, we can see it as a kind of preparation for death. Now, this root fear, as I mentioned before, the root fear of death is fear of annihilation. As Vedanta students and seekers, there is no reason for us to have this fear. We have the scriptures, the saints and sages of our tradition and of all religions affirm that at death we simply leave our bodies behind, that our true self is indestructible. And the current reports and studies of near-death experiences corroborate this teaching. They corroborate the scriptural evidence, forming a pretty strong guarantee that consciousness is not dependent on our physical bodies, and when the body ceases to function, the consciousness separates from the body, and we continue. And where do we go? What happens to us then? Well, near-death experiences suggest a lot of wonderful things can happen. One can enter into divine realms, go to infinite light, infinite love. Sri Krishna tells us the same thing. And particularly for those who are seekers of God. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayah. He says, whoso at the time of death leaves the body remembering me, remembering the divine, remembering me alone, and goes forth, he or she attains my being. About this, there is no doubt. There is no doubt. He assures us, at the time of death, if we can think of the divine, if we can fix our minds on the divine, we go to the divine. And then he explains a little further. Yanyam vapi smaran bhavam Tyajatyante kalevaram tantamevaiti kaunteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. For whatever object a person thinks of at the final moment, when one leaves the body, that alone does one attain. O son of Kunti, being ever absorbed in the thought thereof. So the moment of death is a great opportunity. Here Sri Krishna suggests that our final thought, not suggests, he tells us very clearly, the final thought that we hold is important in in our trajectory after leaving the body. It is important. Though I do remember a very interesting near-death experience report of a man who was shot, and as he was dying and leaving his body, he noticed that there was some chewing gum on the sole of his shoe as he was leaving and he noticed that, and he wondered whether the chewing gum had stained or got stuck to the new carpet in his car. And this was his thought as he was leaving the body. And then he went on to have a profound near-death experience, a transformative experience. So there's always grace. There's always grace. But how much better it can be if we are thinking of God at the time of death. How can we do that? Sri Ramakrishna, it's a pretty sobering passage when he says, the worldly person says, why should I think of God now? I'll think of God in the hour of death. But in the hour of death, he can't do it. He's lying there on his deathbed and he says to his kids, turn down the lamp, too much oil is being burnt. As if that has any bearing on anything now. He's about to leave the body and he can't think of God. So, we have to practice. We have to practice. The moment of death is a great opportunity. We shall be freed from the shackles of this physical form. We are free to encounter the spirit unencumbered. Are we ready? Are we ready to let go of all the nonsense and just head for infinite light, infinite love, infinite freedom? That's our goal. Let's fix it. For this, we need sadhana. For this, we need spiritual practice. And I'd like to emphasize the power of the name of God. Sri Ramakrishna comes back again and again to this, the power of the name of God. It's not separate. The name and the named are not two. And why does Sri Ramakrishna emphasize that? One reason is it's so easy. We can hold on to the name. I have been at the bedside of many people who have left the body. And when it comes through illness, mostly at the end, there's no strength left. Every ounce of strength is being used to take the next breath. Now, it doesn't mean that the person is feeling anxious or fearful. Usually there's a great calm, but still the life has not left yet, and it's just a struggle for a breath. And that gradually that gap between the breaths lengthens and lengthens until there's an out breath and it's not followed by an in breath. In that state of weakness, when all physical activity is focused on just taking the next breath, can we meditate? Maybe not. But we can hold on to the name. If we have the name, if we have made friends with that name, if we have lived our life in the light of the name of God, then at that hour, the name will be with us without a doubt. We hold on to the name. I'd like to mention some practical things we can do. I came across a summary of what looks to be a very interesting book by a nurse from Australia, Bronnie Ware, who had worked a lot with dying people. And she found that dying people there were 5 main regrets that people would express on their deathbeds. 5 regrets. I'd like to share them with you. Let's see if we can live such that we don't have such regrets ourselves. 1, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. This is the biggest regret that she found that dying Australians had. Wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself. Yes, we should live a life true to ourselves, true to our true self, true to the divine, true to the self within, and not the life that some others may expect us to live. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so much. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And number 5, I wish that I had let myself be happier. So one preparation for death, one way to make friends with death, might be to ask ourselves how we're doing regarding these potential regrets. It seems like it would be tragic to feel at the end of life that our life is not well lived. Holding death in mind forces us to live our life well. When we know that if we are going to take the attitude of making our life as an offering to the divine, when we're leaving the body, well, everything we've done, it's over now. We lay that as an offering to the divine. Is it a life well lived? Is it something we feel joyous about offering? So it's something to really keep in mind, that let us live so that at the end we have no regrets. There are some very practical things we can do. One of them is to make a will. I'm curious, how many of you here have a will? How many of you have a will? Okay, looks like maybe a quarter of you. But all of us are going to die. It's not only the quarter of us who made a will that are going to die, we're all going to die. Making a will, it's just a legal matter. You write a will and you have it notarized while you sign it, and the notary signs it, and it's a small thing. And yet, you're putting on paper an admission, an acknowledgement that yes, I'm going to die, and what possessions I have, what funds I may still have at that time, I want these things to happen with them. It's a nice step to take, to acknowledge our own mortality. Make a will. And then there's the question of advanced directive. This is also really when at the end of life, it may be that we succumb to some serious disease or problem like a stroke, and the body is not functioning, and the body is brought still alive to the hospital, and unless there are instructions to the contrary, the medical teams are required to put in a breathing tube and put in a catheter and put in a feeding tube and all those things to keep the body going. Do we want that? So an advance directive is a legal document which must be shared with our someone who we give the power to make those decisions for us if we're unable to. So it requires us to think about it. Do we, at the end, want to be hooked up to all kinds of machines or not? If we don't want that, then we need to put in place some kind of system for addressing it. Otherwise, it's very possibly will happen. And even if you do put it in place, there's no guarantee. If your power of attorney doesn't have the courage at the time to do it. Look into that. Make a advance directive. Another thing we can do, and people who are close to death often may like to think about what kind of ritual they would like, an after-death ritual, a funeral. They may choose certain music to be played or certain texts to be read, or we can plan our own death ritual. This is getting pretty real. It helps us to acknowledge that, yes, I'm leaving. Now, another thing I wanted to bring up is not to shy away from the death of others. It's a wonderful blessing to be at the bedside of someone as they're dying, as they're preparing to cross over, or even more, if we may have the good fortune to be by someone's side as they leave the body. It's a wonderful moment of deep prayer and sanctity. And then to get the chance to perform the death rituals, to perhaps bathe the body, rather than having the professionals come and take the body away, we ourselves can bathe the body. It was done for thousands of years. It's only in the last 100 years that we tend to hire professionals to do it, at least in this country. We can do it ourselves. And most people don't know that in almost all the states of the United States, it's perfectly legal to keep a dead body in your home. Say a loved one dies, you don't have to send it to the funeral home. Legally, in most states, you can keep it here. Keep it in your home, and you can bring dry ice, keep the body cold. You can do what's called a home funeral. It's a wonderful way for those who are left behind to attain some closure. A person dies, and rather than having the body immediately gone, spend some time with that body. There's nothing dangerous about a dead body. There's nothing to be afraid of in a dead body. It's only very, very few diseases that may pose some danger. COVID apparently is not one of them. I think Ebola is considered one of them. Otherwise, except with rare exceptions, there's no danger from a dead body. Rather, it's the precious vehicle of our beloved departed, whom we loved so much. It makes us and one thing that becomes so clear when you do that, and anybody who has done this will know, it becomes so clear that it's just an empty shell now. The person is gone. It's now an empty shell. And it brings home to us this our Vedantic understanding that we leave the body. Deha tyaga. We give up the body. That's all. And then there's the hospice movement, of course, which is allowing people to die at home more, though it may not be possible in all cases, but it is one option for leaving the body in the presence of loved ones. Now, lest we veer too far into a discussion of post-mortem emancipation and post-mortem bliss, we should remind ourselves, I'd like to remind us all, that in Vedanta, we don't have to wait for death to attain God. We don't have to wait for the death of the body to attain the divine. We can do it here and now. And yet, in a sense, we do have to die. We have to die before we die, as it were. So, as Swami Vivekananda put it, this little separate self must die. What happens then? If this little separate self dies, then we shall find that we are in the real, capital R. And the Vedanta says that reality is God. And He is our own real nature, and He is always in us and with us. live in Him, and stand in Him. We've been wearing a costume all the time. It's like a big costume party we have here. And we're all wearing a costume of a body and a mind and its associated personality with all our likes and dislikes and good and bad habits and, of course, a name. And it's a costume party where we've put on this costume over our true self, which is, Vedanta tells us, consciousness and bliss. With this costume, we are playing with each other and we're playing with the divine, with the Lord, with the Divine Mother. When the play is over, we take off the costume. We take it off and we have a good laugh, most likely. We shed this costume at death. Now, we shed this costume at death. This body, mind, personality, all these things, we give up. The body we give up immediately. The mind, the personality gradually falls away. But we also take it off every night. In deep sleep, we take off this costume. And we can take it off in meditation. We can take it off in meditation, or begin to take it off at least. We don't have to wait for death. Sri Ramakrishna describes this process as the ripening of the ego. The ego, which is that block, which says, I am me, I am so important, I am. Don't you know who I am? This is a big stumbling block in our spiritual progress. This is a big cloud which hides the sun of spirit from our vision. We can ripen that ego. As you take a hard green mango, and put it in a paper bag and let it ripen gently, it starts to become soft and juicy and delicious. Like that, we ripen our ego so that it becomes no longer, don't you know who I am? But I am a humble child of the Divine Mother. I am a servant of the Lord. So the Sufi mystics have a term for this in their theology. It's called fana, to die before you die. The old man must die, the old Christians used to say, as Swamiji points out. The old man must die. That old man or old woman who is yearning for pleasure and power and pelf, that old man, that old guy must die. And then the new man is the servant. This ripe ego arises. And we begin to live in the divine. We begin to dwell in the divine. Well, I'd like to return to that conversation that Swami Vivekananda and Surendranath Das Gupta were having as a kind of closing of our discussion today. Towards the end of their conversation, Swamiji says, do not think I am myself something great. He points out that he is only sharing with his listeners what he has learned from all the great saints at whose feet he has sat. And Surendranath says, but we look upon you, Swamiji, as one who has realized God. And a remarkable transformation took place in Swami Vivekananda. Surendranath describes it. No sooner did I say these words than those fascinating eyes of his were filled with tears. And he, with a heart overflowing with love, softly and gently spoke. At those blessed feet is the perfection of knowledge sought by the jnanis. At those blessed feet also is the fulfillment of love sought by the lovers. Oh, say, where else will men and women go for refuge but to those blessed feet? After a while, he said again, alas, what folly for people in this world to spend their days fighting and quarreling with one another as they do. But how long can they go on in that way? How long? In the evening of life, they must all come home to the arms of the Mother. Yes, to the arms of the Mother. Death is actually a homecoming. Do we have a home in this world? We like to think that we have a home and we protect it. And yet, It's not permanent. It's going to end. Be homeless. Devotees of God can be homeless because we have our home in the divine. And giving up the body is a homecoming, a rejoiceful homecoming as we run to the arms of our Divine Mother. So it's beautiful to see how beneath Swamiji's very tough exterior of jnana, of wisdom, of knowledge, of teaching the immortality and divinity of the soul, and of teaching the glory of service and a life dedicated to the service of others. Beneath all of that is this heart of infinite love, this love for the divine. And no sooner did Surendranath mention this, that you have realized God, then he's brought to the thought of the Divine Mother and the blessed feet of the Divine Mother, where all wisdom is attained, where all love is attained. And remembering that if we can keep that in mind, why should we quarrel here? Why should we quarrel? One of Sri Ramakrishna's very much beloved songs, which I also love very much, is this song to Divine Mother. I have surrendered my soul at the fearless feet of the Mother. Am I afraid of death anymore? Can I be afraid of Yama, the god of death? I have totally dedicated myself at the Divine Mother's feet, those feet which dispel all fear. Abhay pade pran shopechi, ami ar ki jamer bhai rekhechi, abhay pade pran shopechi. And there's a line that likens, it comes to the name of Mother Kali. The name of Mother Kali is like the wish-fulfilling tree. Kali nam kalpataru hridoy ropan karechi. Kali nam kalpataru hridoy ropan karechi. I have planted that tree of the name of Mother Kali in my heart. এবার সময় এলে হৃদয় খুলে দেখাবো তাই বসে আছি. This time, when Yama comes, what will I do? I will open my heart and show him that tree growing there, the tree of Mother Kali's name. So he can't touch me. Death cannot touch me when I have the Mother's name here. So in this way, we ourselves get the last laugh with death, when we surrender, when we dedicate our lives at the fearless feet of the Mother. So I think that that brings to a conclusion my offering for today. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. In sum, can we make death our friend? Death is certain for us. Rather than waste energy fretting about it, fearing it, battling it, or denying it, we can accept it, come to terms with it. This leads to great strength, courage, and peace, and drives us to that abode of fearlessness, the feet of the Divine Mother, or the infinite ocean of light and consciousness. It's the great opportunity, death is the great opportunity to enter into divine communion. Let us prepare for that. We don't need to wait for death as seekers. We need to die before we die, and here itself attain our true home at the Mother's feet. Thank you.
Well, that was really a very powerful, beautiful, and very important talk. I so many things that I I could say about this. One thing I'll mention that I know it may be a little too personal, but I know that Swamiji did that for his father when he passed away. That he was with him and he served him at the very end and bathed the body and did all of that. And so he knows what he's talking about. It's a very nice practice. And so many things come to my mind. I'll tell one story not a story. It's very recently, a friend of mine passed away very suddenly. He wasn't that old. He was in his 60s. And he and his wife, they were Vedantins, but also very close to the Dalai Lama and had a Buddhist practice. And I was talking to her, and she was telling me about the funeral rites, and he wanted to be cremated and ashes taken here and there. And I said, well, it's interesting. It's so young that he had discussed all of these things with you. There was no illness or anything. And she said, yes, we've been practicing this. This is Buddhist practice, Vedanta practice of constantly remembering death and being prepared for death and ready for death and everything. So it's really a very wonderful practice, a very practical thing. So very grateful that Swamiji decided to give this talk today. It was very, very nice. And we hope he'll come back soon. He has to leave tomorrow. It's been a very nice visit, though a little bit short. And we wish everyone all the best. We don't hope for anyone to have to think about death coming too soon, but we should all be ready for it. And I think it's a very comforting thought that it's something almost to look forward to, that it'll be going back to the embrace of Mother. It'll be a good thing. We shouldn't have any fear of that. So, very wonderful topic. I'm glad you chose this topic. Next Sunday, Swami Brahmarupanandi will speak. He'll continue that series on Rama's instructions to Shabudi. Okay. And everyone, please stay well, and see you next time.